Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Decision Pints. We're here with James Shawver with Share What You're Making, and we are toasting to a Koenig Greyhound cocktail, which is a local Koenig distiller out of Caldwell, Idaho, really the craftsman of Idaho as far as spirits and wine go. Here's to you, James.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. You don't do a lot of cocktails, so this was a nice change of pace. So Share What You're Making. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've kind of coined the phrase that it's similar to like a Pinterest for engineers. Our main niche is kind of on the technology side of things. So a lot of people out there are probably familiar with like Instructables, Pinterest, Etsy, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple other emerging markets like Hackster, Hackaday. They're starting to get in the same space that we started out in, but truthfully their marketing side of things is a little bit better, but we're niched on the hardware side of things pretty hard.
Great. So when we go to your website, Swim Home, SWYM home.com, there's a number of kits on there broken down by type. And my wife, who's an artist, was on there for years. She was looking at how do I trigger a motion sensor to activate some engaging artistic piece as she puts installations together. And lo and behold, you had a kit on there already with the hardware to purchase and instructions for how to do it. Yep. So give us a little bit more detail around some of these other projects that are on there and maybe pick your favorite.
Okay. So a lot of our projects are community driven. The one that you actually mentioned was one with the Neo Pixel. It's a RGB LED, and one of our customers actually was the one that uploaded it on there. Wow. So it was an Arduino based one. The guy was based out of, I think, Egypt for that project.
Wow.
So we bring in anybody from all over the world, and that particular one enabled people to program specific LED sequences and stuff like that in order to bring in lots of color into their projects and art.
Awesome.
So there's projects like that, and then you mentioned that I should pick one of my favorites. Right now, it's got to be the fish feeder project, where somebody came in and they had an Arduino device that they attached like a real-time clock in order to get ridiculously accurate timing of the day, and then they knew that they needed to feed their fish twice a day, and so they attached like a servo and some other items, and all it simply did was scoop up fish food and dump it into the tank twice a day, specifically at like 6 in the morning and 6 p.m. or something like that. And so that one was way too entertaining.
That really is cool, practical and awesome. So on a scale of difficulty, how difficult is the fish feeding project?
It's not bad at all. It's pretty streamlined where the programmer put all of the code on there, so you just copy paste it. If you know how to program the Arduino, it's legitimately just a click trail. And then all you need to know after that is how to wire things up. If I remember right, the original uploader didn't do as good of a job showing how to wire everything up, so it's a little more difficult there. But our program, our SaaS platform, actually kind of rates all of those individual skills. So if you're really comfortable with programming, you can look for more complicated software gigs, but if you're not very comfortable with the electrical wiring side, it rates it on those as well.
Great. All right. Well, we'll check it out and let you know our feedback on your rating system. So this is a show about making things happen and the people who do it, and obviously your platform and your company are enabling that. But let's step back and hear a little bit about you and how you got started doing this.
Yeah. So truthfully, I've wanted to be an engineer probably since I was around 5. So I've just known that my entire life. I started out wanting to go into aerospace and then developed into electrical engineering. Had the idea when I was in roughly 8th grade, where a bunch of my friends at the time were also aspiring engineers, and it's like, hey, it'd be really cool to create like an engineering firm and then have all of us work together. And then slowly as I got older, I heard about this thing called open source. I was really into it because like patents and whatnot, I'd heard a really bad rep against, because like patent trolls and people going out and patenting things specifically so other people can't make it and stuff like that, where sharing of ideas and concepts and just kind of everybody helping out is the intended community behind open source. So I dove in and learned how to program at that point, and then once I hit high school, I joined the robotics team, was person in charge of the electrical side of things, and that's where I kind of found my niche. and then was thinking about it, and it's like, okay, well, all of these programmers out there do a really good job with sharing things and whatnot. Why can't the hardware people seem to figure that out? And so I went on to that whole trend, and it turned out that another guy named Nathan Seidel had the same idea when I hit high school, but he drove off and created an entire company around it called SparkFun Electronics. And so I kind of piggybacked off of his whole philosophy, just learning while I was in university, and then decided to try and help that community by creating the Swim Home platform.
Awesome. Well, cheers to that. Cheers to open source, open hardware, open opportunities. So you've done a number of projects, and we actually connected through the local Startup Hub Trailhead here, organization we both co-work out of. And small story here that we actually were engaging on a project that had a hardware component that we weren't involved in, and a mobile app component that they had actually invested years and a lot of effort and didn't get it quite right. And as they get low on budget, they call us. We step in and say, we'll do our best. Now, we reached out to you and started working, and surprise to me, there are use cases that you think would be perfect for a mobile phone, and yet that actually gets in your way more so than just going with an Arduino or Raspberry Pi. So to talk a little bit about kind of your position on using a phone for technology versus building some of these more lower level raw hardware components.
Okay. So with that, my mentality of the phone and the Arduino related stuff, everything's an embedded system. And so it's kind of just choosing the correct tool for the job, where in some aspects you've got a really simple application, and that usually requires the simpler or less processing power intensive microcontrollers out there, like the Arduino and stuff like that. And then there's a cell phone itself, which is by definition an embedded system, where it's got way more features, bells and whistles than you normally need, because it's intended to call people, it's intended to download things, it's got this elaborate touch screen, everything there, and it's also not normally too battery friendly because it has to support all those bells and whistles. Mm-hmm. And so when we originally heard about your guys' project, we honestly were wondering why it wasn't just done with an Arduino in the first place, because all we had to do was a couple of GPIO information and kind of basic small level things. And from there, we ran into that hurdle of making the two embedded systems talk.
Right, because here you have, in essence, a voice recorder.
Yep.
And the only difference was we needed to plug into an external system to be able to push a button to activate voice recording, as opposed to pressing a tap on the screen. And it still, to this day, surprises me a little bit that you have this fancy $1,000 iPhone that you can go in, and that simple function of creating a plug that you push a button and it records your voice is so slow that talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so what ended up happening there is the spec for the PlayPause event, and what we ended up using to be able to actually talk to the iPhone before sending data across is defined to have a half-second delay for it to be able to detect various sequences. And so you've got a generic just play pause. It's like, oh, I pushed a button. Well, that goes into an algorithm that's now listening for another press as well. And so it has to effectively time out before it's able to categorize that single press as a single press. Because if you do like a triple click, that's going to take more time, and it doesn't know if there's repeated clicks after that until it times out.
And the phone platform just needs that flexibility, so it opens that time gap, as opposed to the embedded system that you can really customize to be, hey, we're never going to do a triple click, just start now.
Yep.
Very interesting. So as you look forward here, what are some things on your horizon that you're looking forward to accomplishing in the days ahead? Do you have some good projects?
We do have some good projects. The majority of them are under NDA, so I'll have to think about which one I can actually talk about. Okay, so one of the projects that we've got coming in-house is a coffee grinder that's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi enabled. That one we're allowed to talk about, but the concept behind that is this person wanted to do a lot of statistical analysis on grinding individual grains of coffee, and just took it to the nth degree on how complicated he could make this grinder. There's another project where the concept is for, how do I phrase that? It's one of those fans that are actually spinning. They want to create something off of the persistence of vision based on that, and so we might be able to play around with that.
Wow.
And then just various other Arduino and Raspberry Pi related projects, those ones that I'm not supposed to talk about the details of.
We'll have to stay tuned for another update.
Yeah.
It's super exciting stuff. As I went through my educational life, kind of tinkered in hardware and kind of reoriented myself toward software because it's much more simplistic. There's fewer moving parts. Sure, you can cause yourself a lot more grief and pain as a result of your efforts, but it's really a remarkable accomplishment to have the level of depth and expertise that you have, plus the practical ability to apply it to real world business scenarios. And it's great to know that as somebody comes in and says, hey, I have this crazy idea that needs all these different components, I can just say, hang on just a second, go talk to James and Swim and make it happen.
Yep. So with that, that is kind of our passion, is figuring out all of those pieces coming together, because a lot of the stuff nowadays with embedded systems design and whatnot, a lot of the components are plug and play on their specific niches. Like a cell phone, you'd think it'd just be plugging into something and then it magically works, and then same thing with an Arduino, everybody knows how that works. And so really the design or niche there is coming up with the overall system architecture to figure out what all makes the most sense, and then putting in the extra effort to make it work together.
Which, good thing there's people like you here. So with that, thank you for everybody that joined. If you have any questions on any projects or any recommendations, please fill it out in the comments below. Thanks again for visiting here, James. Thank you, David and 360 Immersive. And Koenig, your Greyhound is delicious. Everybody, have a great weekend.